Front and center. Go right ahead.
The Braves ended up winning last night.
Awesome.
4-2 last night.
Who did they play, Brett?
It was the Orioles that played last night.
Okay.
We played a game last night. We played a game. We're going to be playing a game today. We're going to be playing a game on Sunday.
All righty.
Series.
Yep. It's going to be mighty hot out there, but it'll be a good game if somebody can go down. Is it on televised, Brett?
It was on Sports South last night.
All righty, good deal. I was watching that fellow walk across the Niagara Falls. Wasn't watching much sports last night.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, Mr. Brett, we always appreciate you calling in.
All right.
Have a good day, hon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right there, Brett, local sports reporter.
We should have had him say something about his dad. Today, we want all of our listeners to call in and tell us their favorite dad story today.
Sure, that's kind of our theme subject topic today, absolutely. Good morning, caller. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Well, I got a favorite dad story. My dad ain't living, but...
Your dad what?
I've got a favorite dad story.
What is it?
When we were about 3 or 4 years old, my dad was always drinking, and he took us to the carnival and rode us in the Bullet.
Yeah?
In the Bullet. Now, what was the Bullet, Ella? Tell us what it looked like.
It was like a regular bullet, I guess.
I don't know. Well, it sounded like a good time.
Yeah, but me and Billy were down on the floor until we got over.
Okay. Well, Miss Ella, are you doing okay?
Yeah, just my hand still hurts a lot.
Still hurts a lot. Have you gone to therapy for that?
I went to therapy, but all it did was give me exercise.
Well, that's usually what therapy is, darling.
I told him, I said, I can do exercise at home.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you just have to know what to do. Well, Miss Ella, thanks for calling in. If you think of another daddy story, you call us back, okay?
Well, they're supposed to give me, put my fingers in that paraffin wax machine.
Uh-huh.
And they said my insurance won't cover it, so I'm going to go buy me a machine myself.
There you go. Yeah, just keep it good and warm. That'll make it feel better.
Okay.
Thank you, Miss Ella. Bye-bye, dear. There's a few things you can always depend on. It's the tax man, Ella, and Brett.
Absolutely. Pretty much in that order there.
Okay, we have one of our favorite musicians in the studio with us this morning, too, and that's Mr. Tom Morgan. Tom plays all the traditional mountain music, I call it. What do you call it, Tom?
Close enough, yeah.
Tom, where did you grow up?
Are
you still growing up?
Well, when you say, have you played music all your life? Well, the answer is not yet.
Not yet. That's true.
No, I was out in St. Elmo, yon side of Chattanooga.
At St. Elmo. Mm-hmm. And where did you retire from?
The Air Force in 1972, Washington, D.C.
Where all did you go while you were in the Air Force?
Not very far. They found that I could stand the heat of rent and so forth in Washington, D.C. as a staff sergeant. And I spent virtually everything there except for tech school and then 1 year remote in Labrador.
Mm-hmm. And who was your dad?
Spurgeon Snow Morgan from Morgan Springs, Tennessee. And he and my uncle both left me a large legacy of property on the mountain and pride in having roots back to 1841.
1841 on Morgan's Mountain. Yes, I remember Morgan's Mountain. And you have some instruments here with you today. How did you learn to play?
Let's say gradually, but I got started on guitar when I was about 17.
17? That's kind of late.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I wasted 5 years.
5 years.
Good morning, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Well, I forgot to tell you my daddy's name. I guess y'all remember A.G. Stamey.
A.G. Stamey. And was he from Roane County?
Yeah. And his daddy's name was Abel Stamey.
Okay.
All righty there.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you there, hon. Thank you for calling. Deb has stepped out there to do a meet and greet in the foyer just for a second there. I see, Tom, you complete your story. Anything else to add there on your...
Well, discussed the fact that I lost 5 years. My dad brought me one of them Hawaiian guitars, with the Hawaiian scenes painted on it,
Okay.
and said I was going to go down and take lessons. And my lack of nerve to go and find out what that guy's going to teach me, and I dare say he's going to teach me to read music, so that was one strike against him. And then the 2 strikes was I was going to have to take what he taught me that week and take it back and show him I could remember it for a week. And then that was soon after the Depression, so money was not all that available, and I just decided to opt out on that guitar lesson at age 12.
I see. There's the missing 5 years or so there.
Bingo.
And Curtis, a little bit about your background, where you're from, your roots, your dad, since this is the Father's Day show here.
I was born in McMinn County, Tennessee, in a little area called Riceville. I grew up primarily in Bradley County, though, and a graduate of Bradley Central High School. My father was George William Lips Sr., and he worked at various labor jobs all of his life for TVA and the railroad and farming, and he ran a dairy farm for $1 a day. So he had a very difficult life at best.
Good. We did a little background there, completed Tom's, and got a little from Curtis there.
Okay. Tom, will you get ready to play us a song, please? So you learned to play up on Morgan's Mountain. Is that who taught you how to play? Or you just learned out on the porch?
Well, there's a lot of on the porch, and that was in St. Elmo when the temperature, after I'd worked in the foundry all day, was by myself, go to sleep time over those chords, just barely hanging on. But here'd come old Red Cap Norton with his harmonica, and all of a sudden things brightened up. But
Well, play us a song. What do you want to do for us first today?
Entertain us here.
We'll let you get ready there.
He's getting in position.
let's see.
Now, first of all, tell us what you're playing there. What instrument is that?
This is a Martin guitar. There's a lot of people in the world that lust after this instrument. But
I have to kind of tell our listeners that the first time Tom came on our show, he came walking down through the village town center here carrying his little guitar, not in a case, and I thought, bless his heart, look at that little old guitar he's playing. And Ron about came out of his seat when he saw it, because what year is it?
It's a 1940.
A 1940 Martin guitar, and yeah, probably worth a penny or two, but it's how long have you had it?
Since 1977, and I call it my 401k.
Yeah, that's about what it is. Okay, what you gonna play for us, Tom?
I don't know. This voice may not hold up at all, but since you're on a Father's Day kick.
Alrighty.
Vine covered shack in the mountain, bravely fighting the battle of time. It's the dear one who's weathered life's sorrow. It's that silver-haired daddy of mine. If I could recall all the heartaches, dear old daddy, I've caused you to bear. If I could erase those lines from your face and bring back the gold to your hair, if God would but grant me the power to turn back the pages of time, I'd give all I own if I could but atone to that silver-haired daddy of mine.
Excellent. Good job there. Enjoyed that tune. I think that song may have been requested on the Fro Daddy show there earlier in the week there. How ironic. I've done an excellent job there, Tom. You're listening to Old Town Cleveland here. Feel free to call in with stories, kind of Father's Day theme here being tomorrow, and feel free to share them with us here by simply dialing 614-5553.
Tom, what do you think's the largest crowd you've ever played in front of?
Well,
I know you've played on the radio and stuff a lot, but a live audience.
There's no contest in this case. I think I said I spent a year in Labrador.
Mm-hmm.
When they told me I was heading out for that remote tour. And Labrador, when you get to the capital, Happy Valley, you're still 10 miles from nowhere.
10 miles from nowhere.
However, I decided I'd give myself a going away present.
Yeah.
And I called Ralph Stanley's manager, Ralph Rensler. I said, will Ralph show up at Newport Folk Festival without a bass player? And he said, yep, sure will. You can count on it. So I loaded up my bass and my wife and a couple of friends, and we drove to Newport, Rhode Island to awaken. We had to sleep we couldn't find a motel with rooms close to Newport because of the Monster Festival. So we slept in some farmer's backyard and made it on into the festival and got there just in time for Janis Joplin to be doing her sound checks. So that evening, I'm proud to say Doc Watson was there and Roy Acuff was there.
Okay.
Wow. Keep going.
Okay, well, but the largest crowd, though, they estimated between 17 to 25,000 attending when I played bass with Ralph Stanley. I don't know what it was. I knew we were close to the seacoast, but they had a lot of folks down there burning rope or something.
I hear you there. No doubt about that. Rope and rope only, huh?
Yeah.
As Deb, it looks like we're getting an onrush of guests here on the old town out in the foyer there, getting various gifts and perhaps future show material here lined
I'm getting my aerobic exercise this morning.
Go ahead, caller. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, Doc. How you doing this morning, buddy?
Good morning. Who's calling, please?
It's Robert Goins.
Hey, Robert. What's going on with you today? Tell us about your dad.
Well, one thing, I can't go through it because it'd take up the whole show, but my fondest memories of him was when we went to Cleveland High School football games and seeing the look on his face every time they won.
Yeah, he liked that, huh? I can, when you said that, I can just envision all of my uncles that used to, I don't care if the stands were empty, they always would stand down around that fence.
Yeah.
And have some big conversation while the football games were going on.
And I'm going to be busy next couple days getting the Veteran Cemetery ready for Father's Day. That people's bringing a lot of flowers up there. But my father was a good man. I miss him a lot, but...
Well, you're taking good care of him now. Robert and his brother and maybe one or two other fellows, but particularly Robert takes care of the veterans section of the cemetery just because it needs to be done, and I truly appreciate that.
And Mr. Terry Avery helps us out up there a lot, too.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd give you a call.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Robert's a fine fella. He also makes sure my pool stays clean. And Ron likes that because I don't fuss about the pool all the time. Well, you got now I've been in and out, so if I ask a question y'all have already answered, y'all just say, Debbie, we've already talked about that. Curtis, tell us about your dad. You've already done that, okay. But now you grew up out on Highway 64.
That's correct.
Was that an old family farm, or was that somewhere that your dad just moved into the area, or?
Well, we just moved in there. We moved a lot during my growing up years, and that is the only home my parents ever owned.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the process of restoring it now.
Oh, seriously? How old is the house?
It's World War I vintage.
World War I.
I talked to the man who had the house built, and he said it cost $400.
$400. Is it a railroad house? Or is it a custom-built house? Or
it was a custom-built house.
Okay. For those of you who may not understand that term, railroad house, there's a lot of houses here in Bradley County that the box cars would come in to the railroad station, and every nail, screw, piece of wood, piece of everything that you needed for the house was on that one load of that one box car, or maybe it may have been more than one box car, and they'd load it on a wagon and they'd take it to the site, and it was like a do-it-yourself kit. And there were people in the area that knew how to put those railroad houses together, and you know them. And I'm sure the kind of roof has a name, but I don't know what it is. It'll be a four-sided roof,
Right.
That comes up at a stranger angle than what most roofs do around here. So if you ever see one of those little four-sided roofs, that is what this one is, Curtis is telling me.
Good morning. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
A hip roof.
I hated to call back in, but I forgot to tell you something.
Okay.
It's not about my dad. It's the depot is opening up the 28th, but I don't know what time.
That is excellent. So I'm so glad that our depot has been restored. I hope to see that it will evolve into something else someday, perhaps more of a museum or something. But I am glad that they've got a roof on it, and it's looking really pretty.
Down there. I can't wait to see the inside. I'm going to be down there.
All righty. Thank you, Miss Ella.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. That is not our original depot, by the way. I have never seen a picture of our original depot, but I understand it was a little bit south on the railroad tracks, closer to where the stove factory is. And then that one was built, I think, in the early 1900s. So it wasn't our original one, but it's been there for a long time.
I remember taking a trip on the trains that had the was coal powered, I guess, and I remember my grandfather tell me when he was alive, don't look out the window, you get one of those cinders in your eye. And what did a little kid do?
Stick
look
your
out
head
the
out.
window. I remember that.
They didn't have to tell you twice, did they?
No, that took a while to get out there, but lesson learned there.
I have never gone a long trip on a train. Tom, have you traveled much by train in your younger? Nope.
No,
that's
not too
kind of
much.
out of style by then too, huh? What about you, Curtis? Ever? No.
Just a couple of times.
Just a couple of times. I know my mom and my mother-in-law talk about taking the short dog. I
Yeah.
thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard, but apparently, like on Sundays over in the community of Conasauga, I know for sure that they did this. Like on Sundays, they just had the engine and maybe one box car that would just pull people from church and back to family gatherings and stuff. That few miles in the area, and they called it a short dog.
Short
Or
dog.
So I'm going to take the short dog. I'd like to mention that I think it's I believe it's the Cleveland Middle School. I'm not sure of the group, but I know that there's a car wash going on this morning up at Tractor Supply from, I believe, 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and it's to help one of the local cheerleading groups. If you guys can make it by there and get your car washed up, that would be good. You can call us here at 614-5553. Let me tell you a little bit about my dad. My dad's name was Harley Stevenson, and he had a brother named Eugene that lived here in town and a sister named Billy, and then his dad died when he was 25 years old. His dad died when he was 25 and my dad was 5. And so when you grow up in that sort of situation, you grow up learning how to do a lot of things. And at a very young age, he was living on a farm that's still in our family down on Keith Valley Road, where they did a lot of lumber work. And that is back in the day. My dad was born in 1918, so about 29, about the time of the Depression and stuff. They were moving the logs off of the farm there with mules. And then they graduated up to trucks. And they also had a broom factory. And I think there was a little blacksmith shop there. You know, all the stuff that you needed to keep a farm running, and a country store. And the country store had originally been run by the Overbys, and then it was sold to the Claytons, and then it was sold to the Stevensons. And I believe they closed the store right before the Depression, I believe. But anyway, when World War II rolled around, he was a young man there working on the farm, and during the first draft, he didn't go because he was operating the farm, and then he went, and he ended up over in North Africa. And at the last stage of World War II, he was in the foothills of the Alps, and he was doing a job that most people, well, I don't think any of the jobs were good jobs over there, if you know what I mean, but he was running a spotlight. And so when the German planes would come over to do their bombing, he would be the first person to put the spotlight on them. So guess who they shot at first? And so he had lots of stories about diving under his truck, and you know, I think it's just really remarkable. They were truly the generation that we need to really thank for our freedom. But anyway, he did that and came back home after a few years, and when the war ended, and went to work a lot of different places. He ran a lot of dairy farms in this area, and helped work on a lot of farms. He was quite the agriculturist. And then he went to work at a little place called Dixie Foundry. which later turned to Magic Chef and Maytag and now Whirlpool. But he worked down in the grinders and molders department. A very hot, hard work, but worked there for several years, and finally retired from Bradley Limestone, where he was driving a dump truck up on the side of that big mountain over there, dumping gravel out of it. So he had a varied life, died at a very young age, died at 64. And he's been gone now for quite a while, and we do miss him.
I see. I'd like to share a few thoughts here. My dad, still living and well. Among the highlights, I was making just a few notes here. Bicentennial year in 1976, along with my brother. My dad was in the reserves, and we spent a couple of weeks up in Maryland. I believe it was Aberdeen, proving grounds. That was a memorable trip for me, and I think as well as my brother. He took us to see the Smithsonian, among other things. We did not tour the White House, but we did go by, the famous address of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We went to Colonial Williamsburg on that same trip, which I still have memories of that. Among others, I remember him taking us to Disney World when we were kids, and that was a big thing for us.
Okay, now let me ask you, when Disney World, how many parks were there?
Parks, I think, what you're getting it says exploded since then.
Well, I know. First time I went, now I'm telling my age, in 1974, there was the Magic Kingdom.
The Magic Kingdom.
And that was it. And all the people you see at Disney now were all crowded into the Magic Kingdom, and it wasn't so magic. But then we went back probably in 87, and they had just opened Epcot Center.
Okay.
And that was, we were seeing all the things technology-wise that we all take for granted every day now.
I see, yes. Another few personal thoughts here. My dad made a big sacrifice. Of course, the set of teeth that I sport today were not quite as attractive prior to probably 1976. Had a gap. I guess you couldn't quite stick your finger through it, but I do appreciate the time and effort and the sacrifice he made to get braces, and they were the devil to deal with there for the first couple of weeks, but he told me that it would be worth it, and I would appreciate it someday, and I certainly do. Was very fortunate. Dad's bailed me out of quite a bit of financial messes I managed to get myself in over the years, and I do also appreciate that as well. But I think I've probably used my last card on that deal. I think I'm on my own from here out.
I think you're above the age limit now, bailout, Doc.
But those are just a few of those, and then we got into it a little bit on the Fro show the other day. There, Matador was saying some of the things your dad would say that stuck with you, and he said had a few of them there. And I remember my dad telling me and my brother if we didn't start paying attention in school, we was going to be working in a doggone salt mine the rest of our life. And lo and behold, that's exactly where both of us are today. So, but just a few of those things, and that stick out that I really appreciate Dad doing for us. And one other thing there, I made a note here, the bicentennial year again, the Freedom Train rolled through Chattanooga, Tennessee, kind of tying in with the train thing we talked about, and he had the presence of mind to take me and my brother down to see the Freedom Train. And it was quite a memorable experience to go through that thing.
Was that at the Choo Choo Dock?
That's correct.
I went to see that. I went to see that there, and then I also in later years remember. Matter of fact, I see one of my friends, Debbie, online here, and I believe she and I might have gone through the 1986 train that came through, the homecoming train in Tennessee's 1986. Anybody recognize that? There was a train that came through here too that had memorabilia from just Tennessee. I don't remember a thing that was on that Freedom Train. What was on there, Doc?
I remember the sports section there. I think Curtis also went through that. What's your memories of going through that Freedom Train?
Well, the one that stands out was Bob Lanier's shoe. He was a professional basketball player.
Oh, I remember that now.
And he's had like a size 20 shoe.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was.
We always remember the really big shoes. The really big shoes. That's funny. That's funny. Tom, you went to college. Did you go to college?
I went to UT for 3 years.
UTK for 3 years. Did you graduate?
Ma'am, I was far behind, and I went with an idea from my friend that we were going to be mechanical engineers.
Wow.
Suddenly, my major switched to Kaz Walker and Lowell Blanchard.
Okay. And so, did you actually knew Kaz Walker?
I met him a lot of times. He was starting a singing career when he was 95.
95. Well, there you go. There's still hope, Tom. There's still hope.
He was in the was it grocery business?
Oh yeah,
where he made his fortune.
Well, the story goes that when he started his first, he started calling them supermarkets kind of early, but it was during the Depression years, and he would advertise that they were going to be opening on a certain date, and then he would get up on the roof and throw off live chickens.
Really?
To bring a little excitement to the mix.
You know, that was the day during that kind of promotion I know they were talking about over on Stoney Supermarket over here on Wildwood Avenues. They would throw off live turkeys at Thanksgiving, right before Thanksgiving, and people were chasing them down the highway.
P.T. Barnum probably could learn from him.
That's right.
Good morning, caller. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Hello, Doc Hollywood. This is Ron Moore in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Hey, Ron, how are you?
I'm doing great.
How's classes going?
Classes are going good, and Mr. Cook teaches the first half, and I'm just sitting in there listening to him, or sleeping through it, I should say.
Now, you got to wake up and look interested.
Yeah, that's what I do. So, hey, I just wanted to, I know we're talking about Dad a little bit, and I wanted to say a couple things about my dad. My dad was J. Lake Moore. He worked at Stoney Supermarket, and then when he first came back from Korea, he put in power poles for Volunteer Electric. And that's before they had those trucks that dug the holes. He did them by hand. And so my dad was about 5'6" and 150 pounds, but most of it was in his arms.
That's right. That's right.
And, but I've got a good story about my father. Before he died, he tried to put up some lights around his picnic area at his house, and there's a bunch of pine trees, and he was running power between the pine trees and attaching the lights to the pine trees. And his ladder fell. Well, my dad wrapped his legs and his arms around there and was holding on very tightly, and he yelled for my mother to help him. And well, my mother couldn't see real well and was a little slower, and she says, "Where are you?" And he's saying, "I'm up in this num tree." All of that. And he says, "I can't see you." And he's saying, "I'm up here. Put this ladder back up." She says, "I'm afraid I'm going to fall." He says, "Hell, I know I'm going to fall."
He was just ate up where he had slid down that bark of that pine tree, but she's down looking on the ground for him because she thought he had fallen with the ladder, and he's way up in the tree.
So, and then one other quick story. When I was about 6 years old, my dad had bought a new movie cameras, one of those newfangled movie cameras, just a long time ago. And we went to the Smokies, and sure enough, there's a bear on the side of the road. So everybody gets out, and my dad's got his new camera, and he's down on one knee filming. Of course, being 6 years old, I'm leaning on his back, and then he turned around and says, "Ronnie, get off my back." And so what he did, as he turned around, though, he hit the zoom lens, and then so when he looked back through it, it looked like the bear was on top of him. So the bear scared him, and he ran over me, left me laying on the side of the road, and went and got in the car. So those are just funny stories about my dad.
I think Tom's got a comment for you, Ron.
Hey, Ron, I've got an axe to grind with you. Here
Okay.
I'm back in the saddle over here today, and I was looking forward to another big dose of Scopes Trial memorabilia that you could dredge up off the top of your head.
He can come up with that kind of stuff off the top of his head, but don't ask him when my birthday is because he doesn't know.
That's true. I really don't know. Well, it's sometime in September.
It's sometime in September. He says, well, it's either this date, or this date. And I say, okay, then I get 3 presents.
Yeah, but guys, hey, I just want to call and say good morning to you, and sorry that I'm out of town this week. I've had to do another training session next Saturday, so Deb's got another new exciting thing coming in, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we're going to do Blue Springs Community next week.
Right.
And then the week after that, the last week in June, which will be our 3rd anniversary show, we're going to be doing, I hope, the Cleveland Radio Club are coming in. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary, and there's still 2 original members in there, and I think that would be a lot of fun.
Well, that's great. I'd like to appreciate Mr. Lips and Mr. Morgan there, and Doc Hollywood for coming in this morning and helping out, and I'll let you guys get back to it.
Okay, Tom's already sang me one pretty song.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Yes, I missed that. Did he bring that little cheap Martin?
He did bring that little cheap Martin guitar that you've been trying to swap him out of, but he just won't. He said that's his 401k.
Well, I told him that I'd give him $800 for it, and I backed up one.
No backing up on the deal.
I go up to $1,000.
Wow, it's going up all the time.
You need to come visit, about 100 more times?
Yeah, come visit about 100 more times.
Hey, guys.
Thanks, Ron.
And,
I'll see you in a little bit.
And hope everybody out there calls and honors their dads, because what's what the main theme there is to say, we'd like to know, just you can call in, just say, hey, this is my dad, and I wanted to say, give honor to him, or you can tell a funny story on your dad.
That's right.
I'd like to hear those.
Yep.
And, all right, we'll see you later.
Thanks, Ron. Bye-bye.
Yeah, by simply dialing 614-5553. You're listening to Old Town Cleveland.
Curtis, I want to ask Curtis about the play he wrote. Curtis, you have... we'll talk about that in just a minute.
Good morning, caller. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Doc. I just wanted to say I'm glad you got your teeth fixed.
Dear old Dad, a lot for that.
And if your check had ever bounced, you would have been in trouble.
Oh, sweetheart, I know exactly what you're talking about there.
I just wanted to remind you.
But you have any thoughts to share about your dad, Red?
Nah, all I ever got was tar beat out of me.
Or did you deserve it?
No, I'm a good person.
Not even once, huh?
Well, maybe once.
Maybe once.
Right.
Thanks, Red.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. So you tell me about your playwriting. I know that you've written one play. Have you written more than that?
No, I retired from playwriting. I wrote a little play called One Hot Summer, and it was sort of the preamble to the Scopes trial. That's what went on prior to the Scopes trial, and how the plot was hatched up to get the trial in Dayton, and it captures the last 2 days of the trial itself in the play.
Mm-hmm. And will that be shown again this summer in Dayton, you think?
No, I'm not sure what they're doing this year. Tom probably can tell you.
Tell us, Tom.
Yeah, they have a new playwright and a new play. In fact, let me give my friend Curtis here all the credit. When Bryan College and the Chamber of Commerce decided that they weren't going to have it anymore, and they literally had a press release in April saying, we threw it in the trash can.
Mm-hmm.
So when I contacted several people who thought it'd be a good idea to keep going, and then Curtis agreed to write a new play just like he described, and that kept it going for 3 more years.
Mm-hmm.
So give ourselves a pat on the back, Curtis.
Absolutely. Yeah, that hurts. Well, now, if folks haven't been over to Dayton to see the courthouse, they have one of the, is that the original? That's not the original courthouse.
That is the original Ray County
courthouse. It is. And it's a beautifully maintained building, or it appears to be. Sort of. And, sometimes we really love our old buildings, but they really are hard to get up to date and have enough power and water and stuff in them, and I'm sure it's taken a lot of effort. As in Athens, I know that they had a really hard time remodeling theirs. Let's get this caller.
Good morning. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Yes, this is Robert Cheek.
Hi, Robert.
How y'all doing today?
Fine. What's up with you today, sir?
I was listening to you there a while ago. You was talking about your dad was born in 1918.
Yes.
My dad was born in 1920. He's still alive today. He was also in North Africa. He also worked at Bradley Limestone. And there was something else that I thought, man,
it's pretty parallel there, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But he eventually retired from the city of Cleveland.
What is his name?
J.D. Cheek.
Cheek. Is he from Polk County?
Our people are originally from up there. Dad was, I think, all around here. We got my grandfather and a lot of my great grandfather and some great uncle are buried up there. But
I just know when I do research, I find a lot of Cheeks up in Polk County.
Well, I get a lot of calls because my name's Robert Cheek, and there's a guy that's a historian up there, and his name's Robert Cheek.
Absolutely, I've talked to that fella, and I probably have called you looking for him.
Yeah. And they had a Robert Cheek running for sheriff up there one time. I got a lot of calls on that. But anyhow, I just want to call and share that with you.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate your dad's service too.
He lives on Spring Place down there, and he's probably sitting on the porch right now.
Sitting on the porch. What community does he live in on Spring Place?
He's right down below, if you know where Valley View School. He's right back beside of Valley View School. Ralph Mason.
Okay.
These two houses down from
I work at Valley View some. I'm split between Valley View and Black Fox, and I went driving down through there one day, and you know the house that has all the blueberry bushes?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, as I drove by, I thought, I've never saw those cows standing there before. And then I realized, someone's cows are out. And I went down and I told Officer Mason at Valley View, I said, I don't know whose cows those are. And he said, well, they're probably my dad's. And they were. And so he was out rustling cattle that morning trying to get them back in their pen. And so I was just kind of glad one of them didn't stroll out in the road in front of me.
Dad worked on lawnmowers down there for up to his 88-year-old lawnmower, small engines, and he kept the yard covered up down there.
Yeah, I remember that yard. Well, thank you so much for listening, Robert, and thanks for calling in.
You're very welcome.
Bye-bye. It's always good to hear from our friends.
Absolutely.
Now, we're talking about dating. Every time I say dating, the phone rings, so we're going to have to remember that. Go ahead.
Magic word. Good morning, caller. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning.
Hey, Doug.
Good morning, Debbie. I've got a question there for Curtis. Earlier, he said he grew up in Riceville. Well, all my life, I've wondered how Riceville got the name Riceville, so I'm hoping he can help me with that.
Well, I can help you with that. I was born in Riceville, but moved away from that area when I was about 5 years old and came to Bradley County. So I actually grew up in Bradley County, and I have no clue how the area, which is more a community than anything else, is called Riceville.
Doug, I think there was a Rice family there, and it came from that because doing my research for my Confederate book, I've just found the Rice family living up there and just assumed that that's where it came from.
Okay, well, that helps me. I always wondered if they grew rice up there.
You was looking for those rice patties, huh? Doug, tell us about your dad. I know that he was in the service and he became blind. Tell us a little bit about your dad.
Well, he grew up in the Eureka community, farmer and sawmiller. And, yes, he went off to the South Pacific in the Army. One of his favorite stories to tell there was he was on a small ship, or boat. It wasn't even a ship, and it had several 55-gallon drums of diesel fuel sitting on the back, and that's where he and his buddies would bed down, and they would sleep at night on those drums of diesel fuel. And this sergeant ordered him to no longer sleep back there with his buddies. He wanted him to move to the front end of the boat, and that made my dad furious, because he wanted to be back there with his buddies. Well, but he obeyed the orders anyway. Sunrise, the very next morning, sunrise, here come the Jap Zeros. They did the, whatever you call it, where they flew right into the rear end of that boat where all his buddies were, and they were all killed. They were all blown out into the ocean. He said they were like charcoal marshmallows, burnt marshmallows floating around, and the diesel fuel made the ocean burning, the sea was burning. He said it was just a terrible sight, and he owes his life to that sergeant for ordering him to the front of the boat, and he's very thankful for that.
Very good. Is your dad still alive, Doug?
No, he's passed away.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. Thanks for calling, and thanks for being a loyal listener.
And a happy Father's Day to everybody.
Thank you. So we're going back to that, we mentioned in the Confederate soldiers. Recently, a friend of ours that's here online, Debbie, found a list of soldiers from the 41st Alabama and the 33rd Alabama. They were all down at Silverdale in the hospital where the motorcycle shop is. I can always say the motorcycle Harley-Davidson shop. Everybody knows where I'm talking about. There were like 100 tents down there. And at some point in time, some of those wounded soldiers and things were moved to this area, and some of them were moved to the Charleston area, I think probably to the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. There were 20 guys that died up there that we know are buried somewhere here in Bradley County. And if anyone in Charleston knows where there might be a small cemetery that there might be markers but there's no names, if they'll let me know, I would really like to know that. There's some speculation that some of them might be buried there at the Cumberland Presbyterian Church with no markers, but to me, it looks like that cemetery is pretty well full of marked graves. So I don't know. This book has become, I thought it was going to be a 4-month project, and I'm
Right.
about 14 months into it, and I'm about to drown in the Confederate Civil War.
I see. I admire your pursuit and passion for that.
Well, I'm about to get there. I think I'm probably about 20 pages away, and then writing the index, and I'll be finished. So hopefully before school starts back, I'll be finished with this.
Very good there. I'll be purchasing a copy.
Yep. I'm hoping somebody's going to purchase them after I worked so hard on them. But for those of you who may not know, it's called Confederate Voices, and I'm just trying to tell the Confederate side of the story, just because the victor side of the story is usually told sometimes not quite so accurately. And so I'm trying to tell the everyday people's story, what happened in this area. Tom, what's going on at Blythe's Ferry?
Well, we've gotten pretty high marks for accomplishing a whole lot in a short period of time. In fact, one of our benefactors pledged $20,000 toward the cash match, so that allowed us to finish up the $45,000 for the memorial wall.
Absolutely.
In fact, I'm not sure I'm supposed to talk about it, but they had core drilling just the last couple of days to make sure that the $225,000 memorial wall has a foundation that will hold up.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is at Blythe Ferry Cherokee Memorial Removal Park.
Right.
And if you go to where the old ferry used to be, it's the very last road on the right before you get to the river. And it's when is the building actually open, Tom?
It's open Thursday, Friday, Saturday from 10 until 4, and also again on Sunday from 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm. And the park's open all the time. It's just the visitor center there is not open. This is a independent park. It's not part of the state system or part of the federal park system. And so that's Meigs County works real hard to keep it open that much, and volunteers help keep it open. But you can go there and go to the back of the park, go up the ramp, and see an overview of where the Tennessee River and the Hiwassee River.
With Jolly's Island in the middle.
Jolly's Island in the middle.
And old Sam Houston matriculated through his late teenage years with Chief Jolly, giving him the title of the Raven to be part of the Cherokee tribe.
Mm-hmm. And it's, I think, probably the last time I walked all the way up to the top of the ramp and was standing there looking at the river, and an eagle flew by. It was a pretty exciting thing.
It truly is, and some of our people found 2 eagles teaching the baby eagles how to fly right there over the intersection.
I believe the mama eagle takes the baby up high and drops it, and the daddy eagle will catch it before it hits the ground on his back. And that's what I've always heard. Of course, I've never seen that myself. But if you're going out Highway 60. If you go out Highway 60, going towards Dayton, if you get to the new bridge that goes across the river, you've gone one road too far, and you turn next to the church where you see the silos and the cemetery.
Right.
Turn to the right.
Says Oasis.
Good morning. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Debbie, I have to correct you.
Go right ahead.
That's not the way eagles learn to fly.
Well, you tell me then, dear.
Just like the little doves that are nesting on my windowsill, when they feel like they're old enough, they get out and start stretching their wings, and they'll jump from tree branch to tree branch. That's called branching. And flopping their wings in the wind, and they gradually build up confidence and strength. And at some point, they build up the nerve to leap off the nest and the limbs and fly, and make their maiden flight.
Well, Doug, I'm sorry. I heard that in a Bible school lesson, so apparently somebody was exaggerating a little bit. Let me ask you then, Mr. Birdman. I went up yesterday to Ocoee Dam number 1, and I was there in the little park next to it trying to take some pictures. And under one of the pavilions, there were little birds in kind of a mud nest, and they're kind of little V-shaped birds. And you know why I know they're V-shaped birds? Because when I walked under the pavilion, they all started circling the pavilion like they weren't real happy that I was under there with their babies who were hatched out looking out over the nest. What kind of birds are those?
They were swallows.
Yeah, I would think so.
I can tell you what, there's several different species of swallows, and I don't know swallows that well, but they were one of those species of swallows. But what I wanted to tell you, I have watched young eaglets make the first flight from the nest, and it's a very precarious thing. They would fly out maybe 200 yards and circle and come back.
Mm-hmm.
They can fly.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't mastered how to land yet, and they come back into the nest upside down and just clinging with their talons on the tree limbs, and you think they're going to fall to the ground, and some of them do, and they lay there on the ground and die. It's very sad.
Oh no!
But if they make that first flight successful, they're okay. And I've watched a brother and a sister, or it could have been two brothers. I don't know their sex. I've watched them both make their maiden flight together, and that was a very enjoyable thing. And when I went back the next week, they were masters of flight.
Yeah.
They were soaring miles up into the sky, and I would hold my binoculars on them as long as I could till my net gave out. And I mean, they were just flying all over the place, flying together, and that was a really neat thing because I'd watched them be born in little fluffy white feathered heads and stuff, and watched them be fed the fish and the snakes and the frogs until they made that first flight, and that was a big deal in my life just to get to observe that.
Doug, do you know where the nest is up near Blythe Ferry for the eagles?
I know where some have been. I can't say for sure, that they're active now, because that changes with time.
Mm-hmm.
Storms will come and blow the nest down, and they'll sometimes rebuild there nearby, and sometimes they won't. They just give up. But I can't say for sure. I know where some have been in the Blythe Ferry area.
Mm-hmm. I was told they were up on one of the bluffs there, but I've never seen the nest. And then we were up at Parksville one day when the water was real low, Parksville Lake, and there was an eagle sitting out on a branch out in the lake there, and we were told that nest was at Silico.
Yes, at Silico, straight across from the mouth of Greasy Creek. That's the one I'm describing to you that I watched.
Okay.
I watched two different springs. I watched one chick. First year they just had one chick. The second year they had two, and I watched both springs, watched those, and I would document my observations and send to the biologists with the Cherokee National Forest. And they gave me a very nice gift and certificate of appreciation, and I had a whole little ceremony about it, and I really appreciate the Forest Service.
I do too. I think that there's some unsung heroes in our area. We had some red-tailed hawks in our yard for about 10 years, the same pair that mated and had little chicklets there every year, and we really enjoyed watching them. But somehow they managed to eat up our squirrel supply. So when the food chain left, they left too, and they haven't been back. And we certainly miss them. But we do have squirrels coming back now.
The nest at Silico is the first documented bald eagle nest anywhere in the Cherokee National Forest area. So that's why they were very excited to hear my reports on.
Right. And how big are their nests?
Oh, the one there was about 5 feet across.
Yeah. I think the original nest fell, didn't it, Doug?
Yes, a storm blew it down, and they moved deeper in where you can't enjoy it as much, but they're still in there.
Mm-hmm.
But they can get up. They just keep adding sticks year after year. They come back and reuse the same nest, and they've been documented to be big as a Volkswagen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I think I saw one down in Florida that was only about probably 8 feet off the ground, and it was huge. It looked like a giant mushroom in the distance. Yeah.
Well, eagles is a whole amazing story, but so is Father's Day. So I'm gonna hang up. And
Thank you, Doug. Bye-bye. Go ahead.
Can I add something to Doug's comments
Certainly.
about Silico? I think the year must have been about 1948, and they gave me a crew of 11-year-olds since I was the elder 12-year-old statesman. 15-foot rowboat, 150 pounds of food amidships, and we camped in Silico Bay about 1948.
Wow. What group was that?
The YMCA.
The YMCA's been doing good work for a long time.
Good morning, caller. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, John boy, what's up?
Not much. Just want to call in and give a shout out to Daddy-O.
We enjoyed so much having him on the show here a few weeks ago. I would have never dreamed he would have come in and done it.
Me either. It really surprised me that we was able to drag him down there, but
he had a great time.
He was definitely 2 hoots and a holler.
Yeah, he was.
Or a holler and a hoot and a half.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit about your dad.
Oh, good Lord! What can you say about CL? He's one of the old timers, that's for sure. He grew up working in the chair factories, worked for Collins Manufacturing his whole life, retired from there, raised 8 kids, and I guess to say he was a hellraiser in his earlier days would be putting it mildly, but him and his brother James was definitely out there. But he's raised down in Pine Hill. Some of the old-timers around and know where I'm talking about. Pine Hill community is down there in McDonald.
That's right.
Down around Brock Road area, but him and Mom, the Swigers, and all were raised down in that area, and he's a character.
Where did he go to school?
He went to school at Johnston.
Johnston School? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Johnston School. He went to 6th grade. He left school in 6th grade and went to work, which a lot of guys from his time period did.
Yes.
And killer at math. Guy can do math in his head better than anybody I've ever seen. But he went through 6. Him and Mom both went to Johnston School, and then she finished out at Pine Hill School. And on to Bradley. Mom actually graduated high school.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, he's from around that area. He's listening today because he's Old Town Cleveland now. See, he lives by himself now. He'll get up and watch Old Town Cleveland. He just won't get up at 7:30 on Tuesday and Thursday mornings to listen to my show. Dad's got his routine now. In older age, he usually starts his afternoon out watching Bill O'Reilly.
Oh.
And by that time, it's what he calls beer 30.
Beer 30, yep.
Beer 30, and the 6-pack, hits bed about midnight and gets up around 10. So
there you go. That's the life.
Time to listen to you guys.
Well, thanks for calling in, John. We're glad you're feeling better, buddy.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better.
All righty. Well, you take care. Make Ron behave.
Prods put to me.
Make Ron behave.
Too late, but I'm trying.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's John Cook calling in about his dad, CL. CL was on our show a few weeks ago when we were talking about Collins Manufacturing Company. Yeah. But perhaps my favorite story was when he was very calmly telling the story about his wife getting upset with the neighbor and had the woman down on the ground choking her with the water hose.
Wow.
And he says, well, her husband was standing there and wasn't making any effort to stop it. So it was really a good story. Tom.
One caller earlier said humorous things.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, caller. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hello. Calling about my father. I could, like a previous caller, could use the rest of the time talking about him, but I promise you that I won't.
Go ahead, Neil.
One of the, I guess, humorous stories I remember about him, I was just a very small kid. I don't think I had started school. I could have possibly been in the 1st grade, but we were at a church homecoming. A lot of people call it Decoration Day, but it was just always called homecoming where we went. And the dinner was over with, and this, that, and the other. And my mother had gone out into the cemetery to put flowers on her father's grave. Well, of course, Daddy walked out there with her, and I did too. And anywhere Daddy went, it was like I was attached to his hip, so I was, right there. And Daddy was talking to some fellow that don't have a clue who it was, didn't then, don't now. But in the conversation, the fellow he was talking to looked down and said, Carl, is that one of yours? And Daddy said, yeah, that's my youngest. And the other fellow said, pretty smart boy, is he? And Daddy looked down at me and grinned and said, well, he knows not to stick his head in the fire. So I figured I was pretty smart. Another tale, I was a little bit older, and of course, Daddy was in the garage business, and for some reason, I might have been maybe in the 2nd grade, but it was in the summer, school was out, and I was down in the garage, just he and I. Phone rung, and he answered it and came back and said, I've got to run uptown just for a minute. I'll be right back. And, of course, he wasn't gone long. Well, he had just finished a brake job on a Jeep. It was still up on jack stands and everything. The job was done, but there was one wheel still need to be put on. So there I stood. There laid the wheel. There laid the lug nuts. There laid a big, long, four-way lug wrench. So I was going to help, so to speak. So I grabbed that wheel up, mounted on the drum, get the nut started and all that, and I proceed to start tightening it. And big, long four-way lug wrench. Long story short, I got them tied all right, but I twisted two of them off. Even as small as I was with that amount of leverage, but I didn't know. Well, he gets back, he sees that wheel on, and he looks at me and says, "I see you put that wheel on." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But two of them wouldn't get tight. They broke." He looked at me and said, "They didn't break. You twisted them in two." And I could tell right away, something had gone wrong on my behalf. But, a lot of times they would surprise you. He paused a minute, picked up that lug wrench, and said, "Well, now he's going to feed that lug wrench to me." But what he proceeded to do, where I would understand, not necessarily in these words, he gave me a science lesson. He explained about leverage and how the input, whatever force you put into it, increases and this, that, and the other, and so forth. But, they'd surprise you sometimes. They'd have the patience of Job, when you would think maybe they wouldn't. But learned so much from him, just, countless things. And it's amazing that the older you get, the smarter they get.
Yeah, that's right.
They had things figured out all along.
Yeah, that's right. And we just thought we were smarter than them.
Yeah.
Well, Neil, we appreciate you calling. We know that your dad was a very well-known mechanic here in Cleveland, and we appreciate you calling.
Thank you. Enjoying the show.
Bye-bye. Well, I think probably one of my favorite dad stories on my dad, too, is my dad had developed diabetes at a relatively young age, and I came home from college for spring break, and my dad wanted to go fishing in his little flat-bottom fishing boat that just had a little tiny motor on the back, and my mom wouldn't let him go by himself because she was afraid that he would get hurt or get sick or something by himself. So I was going to lay out in the sun on the bank, and he was going to go out fishing up on the backwaters. Well, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I realize I kind of hear him talking to himself in a pretty loud voice, and he'd stop and he'd rest and he'd go floating back downstream, and in a few minutes I'd see him paddling. Well, what he had done is his motor wouldn't start, and so he had taken his spark plug out to kind of wipe it, to clean it up a little bit so it'd start. Well, he dropped his spark plug in the water.
Oh my.
And so he was paddling as hard as he could to get to shore, and then he'd have to stop and rest, and then he'd float back off. So I ended up about mid-March wading out into the water as far as I could, and him throwing me a rope and me pulling him in, and we would just laugh and laugh and laugh, because I said, well, I was kind of glad I couldn't exactly make out the words he was saying, because they were probably not intended for my ears. Doc, can we take a little break here and
we sure will
play our ads that we need to play? And folks, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
WOOP LP, Cleveland, Tennessee.
U.S. Money Shops.
When money's tight, you'll be alright.
'Cause relief's in sight at U.S. Money Shops.
Glocks, and more Glocks. U.S. Money Shops has just received a large selection of pre-owned Glock 22s and 23s, all third generation with 3 magazines and night sight, starting at just $399. $399! These Glocks will not last long at these prices.
On with us, we'll earn your trust.
Sell to us without any fuss. Buy from us.
You can rely on us.
At U.S. Money Shops, there is no shortage of guns. So if you're looking for the best deal on firearms, then check us out first. U.S. Money Shops. Wide selection, great prices. So hurry on down to one of our 9 convenient locations. Visit us online at usmoneyshops.com for the one nearest you.
Buy or sell or pawn today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
U.S. Money Shops. Buy, sell, pawn, we do it all.
Are you looking for the best beer and cigarette prices in Bradley County? Well, look no further than Tom's Fuel Mart. That's right, look for the red and yellow signs. 25 feet from the street, 4 locations in Cleveland to serve you. At Tom's Fuel Mart number 4, that's right there near the Cleveland Speedway. You get the best homemade biscuits, sandwiches, and that includes the best fried bologna sandwiches in town. Just ask the Matador. That's right, Tom's Fuel and Mart, where you can find 100% gasoline. That means no ethanol, folks, for your lawnmowers and small engines. Do it. With locations on South Lee Highway, Wildwood, and North Ocoee, Tom's Fuel Mart, with the red and yellow sign 25 feet from the street, is ready to serve you. Yee-haw!
The Bald-Headed Bistro has a brand new menu offering more value for your dollar. The Bald-Headed Bistro, Western fine dining in the heart of the South. The best bar and happy hour in town. The Bald-Headed Bistro in the Village Green, Cleveland.
When you buy or sell or pawn,
You can't go wrong at U.S. Money Shops.
when money's tight, you'll be
Cause
alright.
relief's inside at U.S. Money Shops.
Have you heard? US Money Shops has just received a truckload of flat screen TVs, and now we have too many of them. There is no better time to upgrade to a new TV from US Money Shops. Samsung, Panasonic, Sony, US Money Shops has it all at incredibly low prices.
On with us,
We'll earn your trust.
sell to us, without any fuss. Buy from us.
You can rely on us.
If you're like most of us looking for the best deals available on brand name merchandise, then come visit us because there's no reason to pay full retail prices. US Money Shops, wide selection, great prices. So come on down to one of our 9 convenient locations. Visit usmoneyshops.com for the one nearest you.
Buy or sell or pawn today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
US Money Shops. Buy, sell, pawn, we do it all.
When you buy or sell or pawn,
You can't go wrong at U.S. Money Shops.
when money's tight, you'll be
Cause
alright.
relief's inside at U.S. Money Shops.
Glocks, Glocks, and more Glocks. US Money Shops has just received a large selection of pre-owned Glock 22s and 23s, all 3rd generation with 3 magazines and night sight, starting at just $399. $399! These Glocks will not last long at these prices.
On with us,
We'll earn your trust.
sell to us, without any fuss. Buy from us.
You can rely on us.
At US Money Shops, there is no shortage of guns. So if you're looking for the best deal on firearms, then check us out first. US Money Shops, wide selection, great prices. So hurry on down to one of our 9 convenient locations. Visit us online at usmoneyshops.com for the one nearest you.
Buy or sell or pawn today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
US Money Shops. Buy, sell, pawn, we do it all.
And we're back. You're listening to Old Town Cleveland here, 99.9 FM, worldwide on the web at WOOPFM.com. You can see us live here. Our theme for today, Father's Day. Share your thoughts about your father. Feel free to give us a call here. Doc Hollywood sitting in for Ron Moore. Of course, his lovely wife, Deb, is here. Curtis Lips is here. And Tom Morgan. Tom Morgan's going to play something, I think, for us.
He's going to play us some of his mountain music. What instrument
actually,
are
this is going off in a little different direction.
Go right
It's
ahead.
Like music trivia. But
Yeah?
once I learned the guitar boogie,
Yeah?
and then I heard him use it for Chattanooga Shoeshine Boy, and then I got to thinking, Huddy Ledbetter was probably playing that on a 12-string about 1932 when I was born.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh,
Always
applause. I don't know how to handle this. I need to tell one more little anecdote. Out on Dayton Mountain, where I still live, my Aunt Ruth had a girlhood friend probably suffering from tuberculosis. But they sent her to the mountain, fresh air, fresh water, and to try to regain her health. She had a little Army Navy special mandolin, and when that thing was made about 1918, I started doing some math, and I said, Anna Ruth Morgan with a mandolin, little Hawaiian song now and then. She was out there learning to play the mandolin just about the same time Bill Monroe was getting his gig started up in Rosine, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Tom, have you seen over the years? What have you thought about about bluegrass music? Do you like this new interest in it, or what do you think?
It's getting reinvented ever so often. Mm-hmm. Like "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" gave it a big jump start. But of course, I've played on the stage with Bill Monroe, Mac Wiseman, Stanley Brothers, and a few of those old time bands. And I still prefer an older way, a style,
traditional way.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hear what kind of mandolin players that Bill Monroe's influence and inspiration has brought us, it's just got to face it. It's penetrated to every corner of every country in the world from this little cross-eyed young man from Rosine, Kentucky, that his older brother had gotten the guitar and his other older brother had gotten the fiddle, so he was left to nothing but the mandolin for his choice. But what a propitious thing that turned out to be.
It certainly was, Curtis, you had a little story for us?
Yes. Talk about my dad. Excuse me. Talk about my dad for just a minute. He was a very calm man. I never saw him get excited about anything. We were standing in a plowed field, and I was a good distance from him, and there was a large field rat ran across and I was watching it run right towards my dad, and he stood there. Just as it came by, he reached down very slowly and picked the rat up and was squeezing the rat in his hand, a big rat. And I ran across the field. When I got there, I saw blood was dripping. I assumed it was coming out of the rat's nose. But he stood there a few minutes, and he threw the rat down, and the rat had bit him through the fleshy part of the thumb. I said, "Did he bite you?" He said, "Yep." I said, "Why didn't you let him go?" Wasn't no use. He had already bitten me.
I think that kind of reminds me of Ron's grandpa, who was born in the 1800s. He was born like in 1889, but lived to be 92. So fortunately, I got to meet him too, and he was in real good health and real bright of mind until the very, very end, which was just such a blessing to have someone around that could tell those old wagon stories and all that. But there's lots of stories about him. He was still building houses in the 1950s, custom-made houses. And if he ever whacked his thumb or if something didn't quite do right, he'd just lay his hammer down and he'd go off singing a gospel song. A few minutes, he'd stroll back in and pick up his hammer and go right back to work. And they said, there was never he never got visibly upset about anything. But they said when you heard him singing, you knew that something had gone wrong.
Calm. Good morning, caller. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning. This is Marilyn.
Hey, Marilyn. What's up this morning?
Well, I heard the boat story about Daddy. Of course, she left out the part about he kept floating by and she kept waving at him, and he always added that in that she was about to let him die, and she was just waving.
I was just waving because I'd see him go by, and I think, oh, he's having such a good time, and I'd just wave, go back to my book or something. Then I finally figured out, well, maybe he needs help. So you don't want me around during an emergency.
And, he taught me to shoot the .22 rifle. He didn't have any sons, so we all learned these little talents because he didn't have anybody to show all that stuff to him.
Well, I was grown before I figured out he was taking advantage of me, because we'd get ready to go out into the woods to go hunting, or we'd be carrying the axe or something, and he would say, "Now, if you'll be real careful, I'll let you carry this." And I was grown before I figured out he was fooling me into doing all the work.
Carrying the stuff. Well, he taught me, and I could hit any target, moving still. But he'd take me out hunting, and whether it was rabbit, squirrel, or whatever, I wouldn't shoot anything, and he would get so mad at me because I couldn't stand to shoot the animal.
No, not me either.
And he taught Vicky. I think Vicky could drive anything that's ever been invented because she was the one that went out and helped him. I think she was so rowdy in the house that Mother sent her.
Well, now, yeah. Well, when we got down to being on the farm, I mean, I was a young child, and I could drive anything down there because sometimes you have to have somebody driving and somebody back on the wagon, and I only flipped him off the wagon once.
Well, T said to tell you that he had a fish cut truck coming the 30th.
Okay, the 30th of June, and so if they want to order something special, they need to call T at 478-2405. Put your order in, but if you just want something in general, he'll have them down there at the co-op. Yeah. Starting at what time?
10 o'clock on the 30th.
10 o'clock on the 30th. Okay, we'll remember that.
Well,
now tell me about T's daddy. Tell me a little bit about T's daddy.
Okay, now he ran farms.
His name was...
He always said he made a bunch of farmers rich. He was a real good person to run a dairy and to do farming, and he was one of these people that he thought you were supposed to be working, eating, sleeping, going to church. And so he never allowed T and them to ever play ball or to do anything like that. If it wasn't work or if it wasn't church, you didn't do it.
And his name was Carl Bandy?
Carl.
All righty.
He was he was a strict person, but he was fair with everybody.
Very
okay.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All righty.
And we all look at each other like, who's going to talk next? That's quite all right. We're doing good. Now, back to Bloss Ferry. The Bloss Ferry Park is to commemorate the Cherokees that were there through the removal, correct?
9,000 Cherokee, 500 Creeks, an unknown number of slaves left from that location.
Okay, now tell us about the monument.
It's basically all the names from the 1835 Henderson Rolls census for Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia for the Cherokee, and all of those names will be depicted.
And we just have the head of household names, don't we? Basically.
No, there's
some other names.
I think there's the other name as well.
So is it still? It's been a while since I've been to any of the meetings up there. Is it a 7-sided monument still?
Yeah, it'd be that sacred and meaningful number in Cherokee of 7. There'll be 7 large panels to hold all these names.
I discovered
2,500.
I discovered something new in Cherokee, North Carolina, in the last few days.
Tell us about it.
It's Granny's Restaurant. You go just north past the casino. If you get all the way to Santaland, you've gone too far. But that's probably some of the best home cooking I've got a hold of in a long time. They had fresh squash. They make their own pickled beets right there in the place. There's nothing canned in any of that. And they had the best sweet corn, creamed corn I think I've eaten in a while. I had encountered them at, I went up for the National Trail of Tears meeting last year, and I had encountered them catering. And so I thought, well, I don't think probably the restaurant will be as good as the catering, but I was wrong. It was just as good. And they're the kind of folks that the whole location's full of local folks, and there's no advertising, so you know they're really good. So y'all go up and visit Granny's Restaurant up in Cherokee. That's a fun place to go.
Give it, Deb's, 2 thumbs up, huh?
Yeah. Oh, it was definitely worth the drive. Curtis, you got something there you want to read to us?
I've got one over here. I'm gonna hold.
Doc's got it. Okay.
I'm gonna hold the phone here just a second. A letter that my dad wrote to me and my brother in October of 1975. I'll try to get through this quickly here as I've got the phones held. Starts out, "It is the dawn of the bicentennial year, a time to look at the past and dream of the future. America is rapidly changing, and my generation is apprehensive about the kind of nation we will pass on to your generation. In the face of unparalleled progress this nation has made in 200 years, we, the over 30 crowd, wonder, have we gone too far too fast? I'm sure my father had many misgivings about the changes that occurred in this country during his lifetime. He plowed the soil with horses and mules, never drove an automobile, yet saw changes beyond his wildest dreams. Your grandfather was of 9 years of age when the Wright brothers made their first flight, and he lived to see men on the moon on several occasions. What great secrets the future must hold for you. So arm yourself with an education, meet the future head on, and unlock the wonders that are sealed there. He goes on to write, I caution you not to get caught up in racial prejudice in the future that this nation has been entangled in since its birth. How blind we are, how short our memories. Did not the Irish, the Jew, the Poles, and the Negro, and many others make this the greatest nation in the history of the world? If you're ever tempted with racial prejudice, remember that I carry in my veins the blood of the Irish, the German, and the Cherokee Indian. Just a little bit more in here. Religion is a personal thing that must be decided upon you and you alone. I, of course, have tried to influence you to believe the same as I believe myself by taking you to church where you were taught the basic fundamentals of the beliefs that I hold dear. I cannot promise you that I will not be disappointed if you fail to accept these beliefs, but I assure you I will respect your right to choose for yourself. Many difficulties will come your way in life to test your religious faith. Stand fast. One last paragraph here. Happiness is a fickle thing, ever so elusively flees you at the most inopportune time. Life is a mixture of good and bad times. Being right will not always bring the good times to your door. Don't let the bad things of life get you down. Fight and conquer depression, and you will win all battles. One last closing statement here. This closing, it says, if I could be granted one wish, I would borrow a thought written a long time ago. May you live all the days of your life. Love, Dad. Written to me and my brother in October of 1975. Thank you for letting me share that.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you appreciate that a whole lot more now than you did in 1975?
Absolutely. Unparalleled. Just what's exploded in my lifetime, from everything from the financial has got to cell phones to just unbelievable. Very well written letter, and
very well written.
Display this prominently on my kitchen wall.
You know, and we sometimes take for granted our previous generations. I know that my dad grew up in a time, just in the few short years that he lived, he saw people going from wagons to cars to, survived the man landing on the moon. I think he was still alive when the space shuttles started to take off. Of course, I always laughed at him because he would say, we were watching the man landing on the moon in 1969, and he said, I've been to the Sahara Desert. That's the desert. They're just fooling us. And so sometimes it wasn't always easy to convince him of things, but now he was of the generation that his dad had died, and he was living with a wonderful stepdad. But, he had to really work. And when he was in the 3rd grade, he dropped out of school and never went back, but could look at a handful of dirt and tell you what kind of soil.
Wow.
I mean, what you needed to put in it to make it grow. And I drive now by all the beautiful farms here in Bradley County, and I see all those little yellow flowers out in the field, and I remember seeing my dad walk halfway across the field, pull up one of those by the roots, because you didn't want that in your field. And I think today's farmers don't quite go that far, but there's a lot of folks out there that made a living on a little bit of education and a lot of hard work, and I think that's when we say salute to our dads. And I think today's dads don't have it any easier, because now we kind of expect them, they work all day and come home and help with the babies more now than they used to.
You're listening to Old Town Cleveland here. Father's Day theme. Feel free to give us a call here at 614-5553. Share our thoughts with your dad. About your dad.
Mm-hmm. That's a good deal. Tom, what's up?
Well, on a more humorous note, like the caller asked for, my dad was born in 1900, so by the time he reached majority...
Tom, we'll come back to you, Tom.
Caller, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, buddy, this is Dennis Stafford.
Hey, Dennis.
Hey, Devils, how you doing?
I'm good. What's up today?
Hey, bud, I'm calling about my father. My father was a retired military man,
And what was his name?
Howard Edward Stafford.
Okay.
I just graduated from high school at Bradley in 1961. My father was at Tucson, Arizona, at Davis Monthan Air Force Base. And he had called me and said, son, I need you to come out to Arizona here. I said, shit, Dad, I just graduated from high school, and I've got a scholarship to go to college, and I kind of like to stay here. He said, well, I need you, buddy. So I jumped on a Greyhound and went to Tucson.
How long did that take you, Dennis?
To get to Arizona?
Uh-huh.
Probably a day and a half. It's about 3,300 miles, I think.
Wow.
Maybe 2 days. I don't really recall, but when I got there, he had told me that the Cubans had decided, or Khrushchev had decided to let the Cubans have missiles on their ground. And they had a conversation with the President John F. Kennedy at the time, and he said that if Khrushchev put missiles on Cuba, it would create a world war. So my father was on a B-47, and 3 squadrons of B-47 was sitting at Davis Monthan Air Force Base, preparing to go to Russia. So my dad said, I need you to be here with, so we can maintain some sort of order in our household here, and if you would, just stay with us. And so the night they were supposed to take off to go to Cuba, my dad told me, he said, son, this may be the end of the world as we know it. We are in a desperate time, and if that bald-headed SOB doesn't pull those ships off of Cuba, or those missiles off of Cuba, he said, I'm going to Leningrad, Turnbull is going to Stalingrad, Colonel Max somebody is going to Moscow, and he said, we're going to blow them Ruskies all to hell. And I said, God, you can't be kidding. He said, no, this is for real. This is a real deal. But see, I'm only about 18, 19-year-old, and I'm sitting out there at the flight line watching 3 squadrons of B-47s take off from Davis Monthan all night long. They're going to Elmendorf, Alaska to refuel, and they're going to go to Russia if they don't pull those missiles off of Cuba. So I was told in the strictest of confidence, you can't tell nobody, this is strictly secret stuff, and I'm thinking, good Lord, as a kid. But in any event, I'm going to end the story, but he left, and when they flew to Elmendorf, Alaska, refueled, they were sitting on the flight line, the planes were running, and the call that my father told me, he said 15 minutes or so, thereabouts, that Khrushchev had called, or somebody from the Russian embassy had called the embassy in the United States and told John F. Kennedy if they would make certain compensations, and I'm not real sure what those were, that they would pull those missiles off of Cuba. And we were in a desperate time at that time, and I was scared absolutely. Nobody knows this story as far as I know, except the ones that was involved with it. But anyway, my father was a retired military guy, great person. He served the country well, and he was willing to go bomb the entire world to save us from the missiles in Cuba. And I've always been very grateful for the fact that I was there. He was my father, and he was willing to do what he had to do because it was going to be the end of the world. And I'll leave you with that thought.
Thank you, Dennis, so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I think we just don't know how close we were, Tom. Sure. You remember those days?
Sort of.
I know one of my uncles was an underwater demolition specialist for the Navy, and we never knew exactly where he was and what he was doing during those times, but it was really serious stuff, I'm sure.
Wow. Military there. My dad spent a lot of time in the military there, reserve. I think that's the only advice I ever followed he gave me was to stay as far away from the military as I can get. I aced that one for sure.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And Doc, you, I know that we were supposed to do your graduation show this weekend. Not graduation show, your reunion show. Oh, we're saved by the bell.
Saved by the bell. Good morning, caller. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey.
Hey.
Morning, Debbie. This is Kim Frady.
Hey, Kim Frady. What are you doing this morning?
Well, this little off y'all's subject, and then y'all have today. And
we're going to be on your subject right now. What's up?
I've just been out to the farmers market, the original Bradley County Farmers Market on Peerless Road, and they have a world of fresh vegetables out there. If anybody's interested in sneaking by and getting some, there's several folks got sweet corn, fresh green beans, plenty of squash and cucumbers and that kind of produce. It's really coming in right now.
So for someone that may not know, it's just south of the entrance to Galen Medical, there at the corner of Raider Drive and Peerless Road, correct?
Absolutely. It's you turn in right where I guess that's what. I don't know what the pharmacy is there on the corner.
Yeah, there's a little pharmacy there on the corner. And I will tell you that I went up to Delano the other day, just happened to be up there and dropped in at the Amish, I call it the Amish farm, the farmer's market up there in Delano. And that sweet yellow corn is like candy.
Oh, this you could eat it raw. I mean, somebody's got peaches and cream. There's another grower that's got ambrosia, and you can't turn around for the difference in them. They are both just wonderful sweet corns.
Mm-hmm. What else is going on? Do you have any gardening classes going on, Kim?
Well, we've got a master gardener class going on right now, but we're about we've got 4 more sessions left. We're just about through for this year, and we'll start another one again probably next spring, early, maybe March, something like that. It's normally when we normally try to do it early so everybody can get out and practice what they've learned when they being in class.
Well, Kim, do me a favor next year, if we're still here doing Old Town Cleveland, give us a 3 or 4 week notice and call every Saturday morning and remind us about those classes, because I know I'd like for Ron to sign up.
Okay, all right. Now, and next week out at the market on Saturday, the 23rd, we're going to have what we're calling the local produce grower celebration. It's for all of the local growers that come out to the Peerless Market and or to the original farmers market and sell there. And the first 100 customers that come in is going to get a free market bag that they can carry everything that they buy home with them.
Very good, very good. Is the little lady out there still selling bread and butter pickles?
No, I don't think they are now, but Gloria Hayes is out there with a bunch of baked goods today. Really good-looking banana bread and zucchini bread, and she's got pies and all different kinds of things. Of course, she's got a certified commercial kitchen that she does everything in, and that's one of the rules to sell out there is that you have to have it done in a certified kitchen.
Well, I may renege on that. I may not want Ron to know about those master gardening classes, because now he's growing enough I'm having to can stuff.
That's right. He'll put you to work.
He'll put me to work. Well, thanks, Kim, as always. Nice hearing from you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Before we get started again, I wanted to mention to our listeners that next Saturday, June 23rd, the 2 fellas that were here, Tom Jester and the guy with the big name, I can't remember his last name, that were from the Vanishing Appalachian exhibit at the museum. They came and they did our show, and then they went down and they walked people through the museum to show off the pictures and tell the Appalachian stories. Okay. They're going to be back next Saturday, not on our show, but at 1 o'clock they're going to be at the Museum Center to help with the tours. They've changed the exhibit, and then it's going to go away on June 30th. So if you want to see that exhibit, you need to get down there on the 23rd. Let's turn the phones off for just a second. And Tom, back to your dad was born in 1900. You had a little story for us.
Yeah, born in 1900, and by the time he was a late teenager, I'm not going to say that it was kind of a western frontier at Morgan Springs, but he carried a loaded revolver in his hip pocket.
Mm-hmm.
one time, for whatever the reason, he was going to extract that to shoot at something. The only trouble, with that exposed hammer.
Oh, my.
It caught on his pocket lip.
Yeah.
He shot himself in the heel.
Oh, no.
Did he say a dirty word?
Did he say? Well,
he probably danced a little jig, I'm sure.
I wasn't even a glimmer.
So you have no clue.
At that point, I had no clue.
Okay, Tom, what in the world is that with those Coca-Cola caps on it? What is that?
Could I demonstrate?
You certainly can. Let me
I'm actually sort of ashamed of this piece and the use that I put it to, on the grounds that Joe Rodolfo gave me this one year as a present. And I thought, well, what in the world am I going to do with that? But it turned out it's just bottle caps. I don't think that he drank all the contents of these Morgan bottles.
Yeah.
But I had to change it to sheet metal or drywall screws to keep it together because it's falling apart.
Okay.
But anyway, old Joe Rodolfo deserves the impetus for this little item. And since we're talking about Cherokees occasionally, this tells a story of the guy that left here and got out to Oklahoma to write the song. Let's see, maybe I can pitch it. Now as I sit here today, many a mile I am away from the place I rode my pony through the draw, where the oak and blackjack trees kiss the playful prairie breeze. Seems like in those hills I still belong. Everybody sing along. Way down yonder in the Indian Nation, ride my pony on the reservation in the Oklahoma hills where I was born. Way down yonder in the Indian Nation, cowboy's life is my occupation in Oklahoma hills where I was born. Now I'm going to quote the famous sage Curly Fox.
Yeah.
Some people will do anything for a quarter.
Very, very good.
Tom, if I sing along, they take us off the air. That's how badly I sing. I'll tell you how badly I sing. I went to Ireland when our daughter was like 14, and she was singing with the adult choir at our church, and they were planned an Ireland trip, and I was such a bad singer. 47 people singing, and I sat and held everybody's purse while they sang. Now, that should pretty well give you an evaluation of how badly. Okay, the folks online want you to hold that instrument up so they can see it. If you'll just kind of hold it up there.
Quite interesting.
It is a stick. When I say a stick, it's a stick.
Literally.
And it has bottle caps that are screwed to it. What, 3 deep?
Yeah,
or 1 deep? 3,
yeah. Give you sort of a Cherokee.
And it makes
Indian.
kind of a rattle thing, and then he has an additional stick that he uses to hit it with. Now, how do you like that for a very detailed, technical?
We played several schools, and I never could think of a name for this. And one day, about a 4th grader said, "Mr. Morgan, where did you get your stick tambourine?" And I immediately said, Revelation.
Good answer there.
Leave it to the children. That's good. I think that, sometimes we don't think about all the people that mean something to us in our lives, and that may not be our biological dad, but maybe a surrogate that stood in, or an outstanding stepfather. If you have a story about someone like that, please call us in. Please call in and tell us that now. It's 614-5553. And we were talking about my dad who went to 3rd grade, and I might mention that he went to Union School down in the country off Keith Valley Road, and that building's still standing.
Good morning, caller. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Yes, this is Ron Williams calling.
Hey, Ron.
I wanted to, you started talking about my favorite subject in the world, which is my dad, and so I just wanted to call and just tell the world that my dad died in 1972, and he was a good, humble, God-fearing man. But in his earlier life, he was one of the original 480 men who first wore the United States Army Ranger patch. He was in the original 1st Ranger Battalion of Darby's Rangers of World War II, and was in every action of Darby's Rangers but 2.
That's amazing. And where did he grow up?
He was born on Keith Valley Road here in South Bradley County, and he went to the old Zion Hill School.
There you go. I know exactly where Zion Hill School is. Somebody's living in that house now, aren't they?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it was turned into a home many years ago.
Yes, and I'm so glad because it has been saved.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyhow,
What year was your dad born?
he was born in 1919, went in service in September of 1941 before Pearl Harbor, went overseas with the 34th Infantry Division, and was one of about 6,000 volunteers that volunteered for Ranger training or commando training with the British Commandos. And they were weeded out and culled away until they had a core left of about 400 men.
Absolutely.
500 men. And Dad was one of those 480 men that when they formed that 1st Ranger Battalion.
That is absolutely fabulous. And I'm sure that my dad probably knew your dad.
Very possible.
I would think so because from the time he was about 5 years old till he went to the World War II, he was living down in that community.
Oh, okay. Well, my dad's name was Joe O. Williams. He was the son of Barry Oscar Williams.
Curtis here wants to speak to you just a little bit, Ron.
Okay.
He might have a story or two on you. Are you nervous?
No.
Well, I would. Anybody'd sue me.
You don't want me to tell that story on the
No,
radio.
I believe we better not tell that story. Nobody'd believe it anyhow.
No, they probably wouldn't.
Ron, where did you work?
Well, I worked in the appliance industry all of my life. Worked with Curtis in 2 different companies, and then I retired from U.S. Stove down in South Pittsburgh.
All righty. And so you worked with Curtis here?
Say again now?
Did you work with Curtis?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I don't tell everybody that.
Ron, did you graduate from Bradley?
Yes, I did, 1966.
1966. There is just an amazing group of people that came through there in the early 60s.
Well, there were, and I just happened to not be one of them.
Well, Ron, thank you so much for calling in and telling us about your dad. I think that we have had a lot of heroes here in Bradley County that we just don't know about.
Well, I don't mind telling anyone the greatest man that I ever knew was my daddy.
That sounds good.
So I thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for calling in. Bye-bye. I love it when we have callers that we've never had before, particularly.
Very, very good there. It's the show, the Father's Day show here. Of course, Deb, you mentioned there it was going to be the 1982 reunion type show, but as we talked about there earlier, just on the letter.
They're like, Doc, they didn't want to admit they were old enough for a reunion, so they wouldn't show up and do the show. But that's okay.
Something like that. Unfortunately, the date, I think, was a big conflict, and then just a little, I think they're going to revamp the expense piece of it, get it down to almost nothing. So we shall see if the class of 82 30-year reunion lives on another day. We'll check on that. Before we end the show, I know that Curtis over there had brought in a paragraph or a couple of pages there I wanted to read. And what I'll do is I'll hold the phones there. If it's, I guess right now would be a good time to do it. Let him, so he's nice enough to come over. And again, appreciate Tom as well coming over.
Appreciate these guys. We told them we needed a couple members of the class of 82 to come over to this morning, so they they said they could do that.
That was 02.
02. Oh.
I'll hold the phone lines here just for a few minutes and let Curtis read a few of those pages there. That's okay.
This is a fairly lengthy thing to be reading on the air, I guess. It's a letter I wrote to my older son when he graduated Bradley Central High School in 1982. Today begins another chapter in your life, graduation from high school. Already you have reached the voting age, 18. This means that you are not only legally eligible to vote, but also morally obligated to do so. Soon your generation will rule the greatest nation in the world. The greatest nation the world has ever known, an awesome responsibility and a most profound privilege. Although this nation is far from perfect, certainly the good in our system of government far outweighs the bad. You should take note and remember that most often the government is a reflection of the people of a country. Perhaps this is not not true of a country that has a dictatorship. However, we live in a representative republic where by exercise of our voting right we have a voice in making changes in our government. The system we call free enterprise does not exist in a pure form, but in a modified existence through federal regulation. There is a slight trend to ease some of the regulations that govern the nation's industry. This must be done with some restraint because of the basic nature of man, greed. As you are aware, the nation has a vast pollution problem of land, air, and waterways. Unchecked industry would soon lay waste to much of this country, reducing it from a land of beauty to a land of repulsive rubble. Never will I tell you how to vote, but will caution you to look for a person who will protect the basic freedoms of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As you reflect upon these freedoms, you will become aware that all other freedoms are embodied in these few words: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life and liberty are afforded somewhat through our military strength. The pursuit of happiness lies solely with you. You must understand the nature of man and get your priorities in order. Man is a spiritual creature and can have a special relationship with his Creator through this part of his nature. Secondly, man is a social being and lives in daily contact with family and peers. Your educational preparation will greatly influence which segment of society that you will deal with throughout your life. What the future holds for you is much a mystery to me as it is for you. However, if you will follow some of the basic truths, you will be in a much better position to deal with the hardships and disappointments that come to each of our lives. First, settle in your mind and heart your relationship with God, and to strive to keep a peaceful relationship by asking and depending on the Creator. In so doing, this will help you make the important choices in life concerning marriage, family, and vocation. I encourage you to attend church and become actively involved with the youth programs in a church of your choice. Also, you will find it wise to continue your education before deciding on a lifetime occupation. I would have you know that I am always available for advice should you find you need it. However, most of your decisions must be of your own choosing. Someday you may sit where I do as a parent and feel the mixed emotion of seeing your child grow up. No longer do you need me in the way you did as a child. Now, as a young man, you will remember your childhood with pleasant thoughts, hopefully, and know that the love that I had and will always have for you. If you ever have a son of your own, then can you truly know what I feel for you.
Well, good for you, Curtis. You're quite the writer. That was very nice. The only thing I have from my dad that he wrote was a sign on a piece of stationery that said "Gone Fishing," and "Gone" and "Fishing" were misspelled, and I thought it was so funny, so I've kept it all these years, his "Gone Fishing" sign. Did you graduate from Bradley?
Yes, I did.
So who was your English teacher?
Well, I had several, of course, but Ben McClary, who is still living, or was not long ago, and Mrs. Arch Fitzgerald.
Well, I wasn't quite smart enough to make it into Miss Fitzgerald's classes when she was there. You know, at that point in time, they had this handful of people that they thought were college bound. Right. That was guided into those classes, and I had those unnamed, unknown people that stayed for a little while and then left. But I somehow managed to make it through. Tom, where did you graduate from high school?
Central High in 1949.
1949. And when did you graduate, Curtis?
58.
In Bradley, from Bradley. Excellent.
Awesome. Well,
here we are, Doc.
Class 82 here. Yeah, representing.
We're good. So I had the privilege, though, Doc, to have gone to the old Bradley 2 years and the new Bradley 2 years. I graduated in 74.
Right.
Went on to Cleveland State and then UTC, and I just keep going back to UTC. Last time I went through and got a different endorsement, I was older than all the instructors. So I guess that was my sign. It was time for me to quit going back to school.
Go Mocs. As we near the end of the show here, another 15 minutes or so, feel free to give us a call here at 614-5553. It's been kind of a haphazard, but mainly Father's Day theme
we still
here.
have people following us. I like this online. Debbie said that she didn't want to be in Miss Fitzgerald's class, and I think that's probably they probably would have kicked me out on the first day. But she was an outstanding teacher, and I think responsible for a lot of folks who have come through Bradley and gone on to be quite successful.
Miss Fitzgerald had us memorize a stanza from Thanatopsis. In those days, I had a very good memory, and I read it twice on the school bus on the way to work. And when I was in class, she asked me how long it took me to learn it. And I said, well, I read it twice. And she told me I didn't do that. I said, yes, ma'am, I did. And she wouldn't believe it. 35 years later, I went to her and quoted it back to her.
Wow.
And I'm sure she enjoyed that quite a bit. Well, next week on the show, we're going to be talking about the Blue Springs Valley. I'm hoping to have someone from Blue Springs School background in here. And then I'm going to have somebody out of the community in here that's going to talk about the families that live down in that area. And that was a very important part of Bradley County, particularly during the Civil War. There were troops camped down there for a number of months. The railroad went through the middle of the community, which was, if you could control the railroad here in Bradley County, you can control all the supplies going to and from the war. So that was a very important part of everything in that area. So I think that's going to be an excellent show that everyone will enjoy.
Very good.
Tom, you got another song for us over there, buddy?
One for the road.
Tom
here.
always comes in like the one-man band. He has all of his little instruments, and he's picking his Martin up. That's been his favorite girl for a long time. Tom, do you have children?
I have 2 boys and a girl.
2 boys and a girl. I don't believe I've had the
5
pleasure.
grandchildren and 1 great-granddaughter.
There you go. I do remember meeting your lovely wife. Tom, that's when I first met Tom. He and his wife, and Tom still is in the schools more than most kids are in school these days. I met him probably 20 years or more ago when he was out at Oak Grove entertaining the children with his music, and his lovely wife was still with him.
Let's see. This is an old Bill Carlisle tune. I'm not in too good a shape to render it, but I'm going to try.
Okay, go right ahead.
When I was young, I had an automobile, scooting myself riding under that wheel. Had to fight the girls with a stick. Now they say, oh, he makes me sick. Too old, he's too old. Cut the mustard anymore. Too old, he's too old to cut the mustard anymore. I used to could jump just like a deer. Now I need a new landing gear. Used to could jump a picket fence. Now I'm lucky if I jump an inch. Too old, he's too old to cut the mustard anymore. He's getting too old, he's too old to cut the mustard anymore, and I ain't lying.
I love it, Tom. Tom, play that song if you don't mind. Here I'm putting you on the spot, but Tom doesn't mind. I want to hear that when after this caller. I want to hear that Scopes Monkey Trial song about no ain't no bugs on me.
Good morning. You're on Old Town Cleveland.
Hello. Hey, Debbie, I was just seeing that the other day to Doug Dunn's radio station. I asked him if he had heard that song.
Well, Tom don't know this, but I can vividly see my dad walking across the pasture with the milking bucket singing that song. Mm-hmm. I sure can. Well, thanks, Ella. Okay, Tom's going to sing a song from the Scopes Monkey Trial for us.
You'll probably recognize the tune as from It Ain't Gonna Rain No More, but it was popular in 1925. Now the monkey swings by the end of his tail as he tries from tree to tree. There may be monkey in some you guys, but there ain't no monkey in me. Wrong key, let's change that a little bit.
were the only one that knew that.
Yeah, I know, but I've had enough trouble getting through it anyway. Let's see, then there was another one. I'm completely brain dead since I got my capo in the wrong place and my fingers in the wrong
Move your
place.
capo and you're
also.
fine.
Quite
You're
a
fine.
little equipment adjustment there.
Yeah. And then I got
this. Welcome to live radio.
Oh yeah, live.
Here he goes.
Oh, there ain't no bugs on me. There ain't no bugs on me. There may be bugs on some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me. Billy Sunday is a preacher. His church is always full. People come from miles around just to hear him shoot the bull. That was sort of sacrilegious, wasn't it? No, there ain't no bugs on me. There ain't no bugs on me. There may be bugs on some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me.
That's great. That was one of the songs that came out of the Scopes Monkey Trial, and I know that you guys really like to talk to Ron about that because he's. You get these three guys, you get these two guys and Ron in the same room, and boy, they can talk the Scopes Monkey Trial. Curtis, did you have something else there you wanted to read to us? No? Oh, okay. You flipped your tablet there. Oop, get your microphone. That'll make it easier.
Well, I'd made a note here of how Father's Day got started. And how it got started and how it perpetuated is two different things. A woman named Sonora Smart Dodd heard a sermon on Mother's Day in 1909, so she suggested there be a Father's Day. After some rattling around it not ever really happening, New York formed a society which was merchants promoting merchandise, and the whole thing survived only because of the merchandising. And it became a second Christmas to those people in the merchandising business. And really, officially, Father's Day only dates from 1972 as a holiday.
But it was just something everybody did before then. Well, I didn't realize that because I thought it was something that had been going on for years and years.
Well, in an unofficial way, it had. But Richard Nixon signed it and is a true holiday.
Okay.
It was
good old Richard. I think he was one of our trivia questions last week of what what president was on Laugh-In, and it was Richard Nixon.
Really?
And I wanted to mention that too. Last week, Tom, we were doing old comedy series on TV. Well, we got stuck on Andy Griffith, which is a really good place to get stuck. And I didn't realize it till I got home and somebody posted it on our Facebook page, but we didn't mention the words "nip it in the bud" was not mentioned during the whole show, which amazes me. But we had the best time of people calling in and talking about all the old movies. I mean, the old Andy Griffith shows that they remember. And I think that we're going to kind of do another show on that in a few weeks. We try to do, we're kind of on a schedule here that we try to do a music show every 6 weeks, and we try to do a real history show with lots of facts and figures, about something, and then we just do something for fun. And we're coming up on our 3rd anniversary of the show, and I appreciate the folks that stop me at Walmart and tell me how much they enjoy listening.
Yeah, I know we've the theme here has been Father's Day, of course. I would like to take a second out to say that my mother, who lives here in Cleveland, I hope she's listening this morning. Do appreciate her as well for the patience with me. Shared
with the perpetual teenager.
Yes, patience and understanding most of all, and I know that the Mother's Day just passed a few weeks ago. It just worked out that I was able to do this thing here on the Father's Day and be able to share a few thoughts and read the letter to my dad who wrote to me and my brother back in '75, but think of her often as well.
Tom, any parting words, sir?
Yeah, I want to brag on you guys. You can break the world's record for 2 hours.
Yeah. We do okay. I said this show's always like being in a spin cycle, but you just never know when you're going to fall off, But we have a really good time, and we've talked about we've talked about everybody and everything on this show, and that I kind of went through my head a while ago when you was talking about your dad being born in 1900. I know that my dad was in one of that generations of when I was still a teenager. He was still shooting little creatures and bringing them home for my mom to cook. What kind of wildlife did your dad put on the table for you guys to eat in St. Elmo?
My dad was a little more interested in a paid job and feeding 4 boys. But now my uncle, deer, turkey, everything imaginable, grouse, quail, rabbits, squirrels. It was just, in fact, I've still got his old shotgun, and it's got a very curious thing. In those days, the Remington patents, Browning patents made by Remington, had a weak walnut forearm, and my uncle got tired of it breaking off in the woods and him being out of business. He went to the machine shop down in Birmingham, and it's made totally out of one piece of aluminum to perfectly fit the 12-gauge semi-automatic.
Excellent. And Curtis, any parting words, sir?
Adios.
That's all he wrote. Docs.
I did. My good friend Fro Daddy here, he would kill me literally if I didn't take opportunity to promote his band, the party band Convertible. Will be at Alhambra Shrine Temple tonight. The specific address is 1000 Alhambra Drive, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Show starts on or about 8:30ish.
It's in East Brainerd, isn't it?
East Brainerd, you kind of weasel your way down through there, and I believe it's on the left.
I believe that's a birthday party / fundraiser for some good event. I'm not sure what the
something along those lines.
What it's benefiting, but they're there doing a good job, and it'll be a good time. What time does it start?
On or about 8:30, as the flyer says here. Of course, for more details, you can feel free to give the Alhambra Shrine Temple a call at 892-0223. Again, that number, 892-0223. Get out and support a good cause there and see a very entertaining front man, Whoop FM's own Fro Daddy and his band Convertible.
That's right. And I want you guys to be sure, all your listeners, to be sure to honor your dads this weekend, or any man that meant a lot in your life. And we're going to get on out of here and get going. And I'd like to thank Tom and Curtis for coming all the way over from the big city to visit with us this morning. And Tom, anytime you have something to promote, please call us up. I know sometimes there's things going on at Blythe Ferry that I don't hear about or I don't know to announce, and I really would like to have our listeners coming out and visiting that place often.
It's Meigs County's crown jewel.
It is. And it's kind of in a strange place because I think this is Meigs County, but it is. It's on the very little corner of Meigs County, and it's operated by the hotel taxes. They're out of Meigs County, and I really appreciate them taking the money out of their limited budget to help us remember the Cherokee. And as we get our visitor center established up in Charleston to help with that also, I think when we start getting people off the interstate and they can see Red Clay and they can come visit Blythe Ferry and they can come to Charleston and learn about Fort Cass and go on down to Moccasin Bend when they get it opened up to the public, we're going to really be telling the story that we should have been telling for a long time.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Doc, so much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for having me here.